tell you what I want, what I really, really want. And I'm going to discuss the epic struggle to re-engage in and reinvent the scholarly experience. And I'm going to use a broad definition of scholarly, inclusive of the 5-year-old interested in Picasso, but aimed at providing curators and art historians that ideal environment for communicating passion. I was encouraged to hear Jill say yesterday that high-quality, well-curated content is a priority. And so my topic for today is From Fractious to Fractious, the Future of Museum Publications, or Pickles, Lingerie, and Spitting Courtesans. Let me just start by defining fractious. Fractious is a word I think I invented about 5 weeks ago on a particularly frustrating day. I didn't define it myself, but I discovered that my son had been thinking about it. He's a graduating senior, and this is how he began his senior speech last week. My mother and I have, in the past few weeks, begun to use a new word. It is a word that she claims she made up, but I believe she borrowed and altered it from Lewis Carroll's poem Jabberwocky. We use this word to describe an emotion that I don't think has any other name. This is probably because the emotion is so broad and ephemeral that my mother and I are the only people in the world who would think to confine it to 8 letters. The word is fractious. Fractious is an emotion of general dissatisfaction and confusion with life. Life feels too ambiguous, too vague, and indefinite. All that I can understand at this point is that in this moment, in every moment, I am changing. I can try to fit myself into something concrete, an idea of a person, but just as soon as I've become that idea, I slip out of it. How can I ever truly be satisfied with life if in every moment I am aware that it is changing and slipping away? This is fractious. Lots of things make me fractious. Bad drivers, which I am one actually. Graduate students who don't know how to use punctuation in papers. And, fractious defined, that's me. Christmas pickles. Christmas pickles make me fractious because I don't like being marketed to. And every year these blasted things appear on the shelves. And nobody in Germany ever had one of these. No German person ever woke up, no child ever woke up looking for a Christmas pickle in a Christmas tree. They make me fractious. So, another thing, so when I'm not fractious, sometimes I feel fractious. And fractious is defined by Lewis Carroll. It comes out of his 1872 book, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. It's an emotion on the far end of the roller coaster. In a memorable passage, Alice discovers a book that is illegible until she holds the text up to a mirror, at which point she discovers the text of the nonsense poem Jabberwocky, a mini epic of a youth that slays a monster, the Jabberwock. He returns and is greeted by the narrator with the following words: "And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh callay," he chortled in his joy. So for the purposes of this talk, the Jabberwock I'd like us to consider and put it into are the fears that lead to the communication firewalls inherent in museums that keep curators from fully imagining e-publishing as it could be. We don't find the notion of e-publishing promising. I'm a curator. I go way back as a curator. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. We don't find the notion of e-publishing joyful for reasons I'll go into in a few minutes. But for now, I'd like to begin the story in the distance past, in a time before the internet, and imagine everything goes really wavy up here for a minute. We're going back in time. And we're going back in time to the year 1990. In 1990, I graduated from graduate school with a PhD in 15th century Italian fresco painting, and I ended up as a curator at the San Diego Museum of Art, European curator. And in December 1990, I was giving a tour about this painting. This is a painting that's in the collection. It's called, in theory, it's by an artist called Pier Francesco Fiorentino. It's the Madonna and Child in Rose Gardens. And so what I'd like to know is, what do you guys know about Mary? What do you know about this painting? Amy?
She's the mother of Christ.
Mother of Christ. That's who the baby is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, she was a virgin.
Baby Jesus, okay. She was virginal.
She often is depicted wearing blue.
Or red.
Blue or red clothes.
She's got a halo.
Got a halo. Woohoo!
Just flowers around.
Flowers around her. Not at
Rose.
Yeah, roses. Not in a rose garden.
She's wearing a Renaissance dress.
Renaissance dress. That's right. Okay.
She rarely smiles.
Rarely smiles. Why is that?
She's not fractious.
She's not fractious. She's not fractious. Why doesn't she smile?
She's serious, maybe predicting.
That's right. She doesn't smile in Renaissance paintings because, according to the Renaissance, she already knew when the baby was a little baby what was going to happen. Right? We'll leave it at that for a second, but I'm a Renaissance curator. I could stand here for the next 2 hours and talk just about this painting. I could tell you about that little European goldfinch that the baby's holding. I don't know, anybody had a 2-year-old, 1-year-old? They got a hold of a goldfinch, what would they do? Right? Blood's all over. That baby isn't doing that because baby Jesus is taking that goldfinch, putting it up to its lips. European goldfinch. There were no European goldfinches in Jerusalem when he was a baby. European goldfinch has a little tiny red dot on top of its head. And so the story about the European goldfinch was that when Jesus was grown up and going to be crucified, the European goldfinch came down. It didn't have a red dot on its head then, and he pulled the thorns out of Jesus' head to make him feel better. A little drop of blood fell on it. And forever after, the European goldfinch is able to wear it. That little spot of red is a sign of honor. Yeah, see? Roses, right? Pink, red, and white, right? The white means she's virgin, right? The red means the blood he's going to shed. The pink, the events have not yet come to pass, which are going to make the roses red. See, you know, this is what curators do, and this is what gets us high, right? You know, I get to tell you things you don't know, and someone back there goes, "Oh, I didn't know that." That's really cool. Meanwhile, there's somebody else in 1990 who's doing things a whole lot more spectacular than I'm doing. Jill, you're probably familiar with this man. This man named Steve Jobs. You know, because I was in Texas, I had to bring that other picture because in the late 1980s, he took a job with the billionaire Texan named Ross Perot and a company called, right? And they built something called it's right there, the Next Computer. And the Next Computer, they only sold 50,000 of the Next Computer because it wasn't, you know, it was going to be a big, heavy, not big, heavy, you know, it was heavy, it was like that big. It was going to be a big, powerful computer for universities. And they didn't sell a lot of them, but they sold one to someone really important. Anybody know who that was? And on Christmas Eve in 1990, a guy named Sir Tim Berners-Lee did the first web page, really the first sort of internet site on this Next Computer. And in 1990, you know what, on Christmas Eve, I'm standing there in front of that Madonna going, and pink roses are because the blood has not yet. But it makes me fractious to do that. And presumably next. Okay, we're going to fast forward a little bit to November 1994. Steve is working busily away, beavering away, doing the things he's doing, and I'm still at the San Diego Museum of Art. But things have progressed. We're getting interested in technology because the director had gone over to a place called the UK, and the UK, the National Gallery in London, the National Gallery in London had just opened something the year before called the Micro Gallery at the National Gallery. The Micro Gallery is the first interactive art gallery in a museum in the world. And my director and a donor at San Diego said, you can do the same thing in San Diego if you'll use the same firm. So I started working with a firm called COGAP. COGAP has been in the business since 1990, and they're the ones that did that Yay MoMA app, right? So they're good at what they do. So I was working with them on an interactive gallery. Image, the interactive gallery, Art Gallery Explorer was the first interactive art gallery in a museum in the United States. And Scott was telling about Easter eggs the other day. This is the Easter egg from the Image Gallery, and that's me as the Madonna, and Alex Morrison, who I call Amo, Nick Honeysett, who's the head of operations at the J. Paul Getty Museum, Roy Matthews, who's the only purveyor of new media to Her Majesty the Queen of England, and Ben Rubenstein, who just defies brilliance. I'm the dumb one in that group. Anyway, summer of 1995, we've opened the Image Gallery. We're special. We're doing something awfully important. So we are sort of a keynote presentation at ICHM, the International Conference of Hypermedia and Museums, in Coronado Island, and we have a reception, have the Image Gallery, and I'm talking to Alex Morrison, who's the director of COGAP, and I'm saying to Alex, it's 1994, and I said, Alex, you know what I really like is when I go into a museum, I really, you know, that information that's on the label, I really like to have some way to to just capture that information off the label. And Alex looks at me and reaches into his pocket and pulled out a notebook and pencil. So, you know, what I mean to say by that is sometimes the answers are simple and sometimes the answers are complex. We're going to keep going forward. 1996 to 1999, I'm not good at technology. I'm a curator, but I am good at content. And so what you want to do is get your curators to focus on the things that they're really good at, to let them be as excited as I am right now to talk about the things that they want to talk about. So between 1996 and 1999 in San Diego, we prepared the web. By that time, the web was happening. So we took all of the stuff on Image, which was giant, high-resolution images, and we made it accessible to the web. We put all the posters of Toulouse-Lautrec. We made little presentations. The Benny collection, there's a great collection of South Asian painting. We started putting all of this rich content online. And then in 2000, I got wooed away to the San Diego Museum of Art. I left the curatorial field and I went to the Cleveland Museum of Art, where I was named director of new media. 2000. So, September 2001, on September 10th, I was working in the galleries at Cogath in Brighton, England, and we were getting ready to launch the new website of the Cleveland Museum of Art. It was a great time because there were more features than we'd ever been able to have when the Twin Towers went down. And it became apparent on September 10th that I wasn't going home anytime soon. I was going to be in England for a while. And so I found a room. Some of you have heard this story before. I found a room. I found a room at a gay bed and breakfast. I was the only guest for a week at the gay bed and breakfast in Brighton, and it was all the way across the city, because the hotel I had been in was given to the Continental first class passengers. And I would go early in the morning to Cogath. And then in the evening, I would walk home across the city of Brighton. And I was usually leaving in the evening because it was fall. And I passed this little lingerie store. Now, we're only talking about 10 years ago. I was already a big girl. I'd been married for a number of years. But this lingerie store was fantastic. My husband's 3,000 miles away, and all I can think about on the way home is this lingerie. So finally, I realized that, and I want some of this lingerie in Bruce Wayne. Finally, I realized that the issue with the lingerie is that they have it displayed on illuminated models. I don't actually glow in the dark myself. And as soon as I realized that I was not actually going to glow in the dark, I didn't really need the fancy lingerie anymore. So again, it's about sort of knowing what's right for you and what's right for your museum. So September, I'm in Brighton, all excited about my website, and then in October 2001, there he goes again with an iPod. Just as I feel I'm getting caught up, the man calls a press announcement and releases something that's going to change my life, honestly. And it's about 2001 that what I like to call the Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship effect begins, where all of a sudden, Jefferson, for those of you who are younger than I am, there used to be a man called Jefferson Airplane. And then it became Jefferson Starship because airplanes were old technology, and then it just became Starship. And that's what happens in about 2001. We start going crazy. There are handhelds, we start doing interactives, and not just, and I mean we museums. We start doing interactives in galleries, Robin Dowden's turning them out at about, I don't know, one every half week, their interactives are coming out. We're learning how to do online catalogs. It's not enough just to have pictures. We need all sorts of rich content in our catalogs online. We're doing storyboards for video presentations. Second Life comes into play. The man comes back with the iPhone at some point. And just as I'm getting used to the whole idea of handhelds and rich content on handhelds, I start thinking about that picture in the middle. That's a brand new, that's a recent, it's a little tiny handheld projector. And my idea about 5 years ago, that what would be really useful for museums is that if we had this sort of bank of videos, and somebody was talking about it yesterday, lost wax casting is the bane of my existence. I talk about this all the time. I figured, at some point that I've spent at least 2 working weeks of my life doing labels about lost wax casting, describing it, creating videos, creating animations. We don't need to do those anymore. There's enough of them out there. Do not spend time doing that. Find one that somebody's done and just use it. So my idea was that docents would have this bank of videos and things, and I didn't want people to get wowed by the technology, so they had this little tiny handheld projector, and in every gallery there would be a sublimely unnoticeable white space, and the docent could just type in the number and get the lost wax casting. I don't know how I thought the docents were going to be, maybe I thought they were like the guards at the San Diego Museum of Art with the vault codes on their arms every day. But, I'm not good at technology, I'm good at content. That was not a very good idea. I didn't think it through the way Scott and Chris think things through. And still the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and the gorilla has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the past 10 years, is e-publishing, is what's going to happen to publishing in museums. And so for the past sort of 6 or 7 months, I've gone around and talked to people about e-publishing, and I just want to, you're going to think some of these things are familiar from curators and from content people. I want the thump of the real book. I'm afraid I won't feel closure on a project if it's all online and constantly being updated. What if the information is lost? URLs are permanent. My peers won't respect an e-publication. An e-publication won't help me get tenure. Rights and repros will be cost prohibitive even if we could get them. Visitors expect us to publish a catalog for special exhibitions. We need exhibition catalogs for marketing reasons and to give as gift to upper level donors. It's too expensive to keep producing print catalogs. So this is the kind of, this is the kind of walls that we build to keep from talking to one another. So, I need a print publication for my peers to respect. Print publications are too expensive. And it just ratchets up until there's no good way to have the conversation. But something happened, and damn, if it isn't this guy again. January 2010. We aren't there yet, but the rules changed. And how the rules changed are less about the technology and more about the fact that your curators and your content providers can sit on airplanes and see the guy in the seat next to them reading a New Yorker on an iPad. Or they go to the Venice Biennale and they see the iPad app that was created for the Venice Biennale. Or they go to, yay MoMA, yeah Allegra, they go to MoMA book site. And I don't think the 800-pound gorilla is a cute little monkey yet. But I'm willing to bet that it's getting to be more of a cute monkey than it is an 800-pound gorilla. And so I guess my remarks are in the way of inspiring you guys all sort of to go out and have one-on-one conversations. Don't talk about, in the first half of lunch, before they get the gin and tonic in them, don't talk about what the iPod can do. Ask them, how did you get to love art in the first place? What's your favorite object in the museum? Can you take me in front of it and tell me about it? And tell me about it. And Steve is going to be familiar with this one. I taught an undergraduate course this semester, and I made the students go into the gallery every week and talk about objects. And I was just amazed at the things that they came up with. And I saw one the other day. I worked at the Cleveland Museum of Art twice, the last time for a decade, and I saw a work I had never seen before, and I was just amazed. This is called the Spitting Courtesans.
Oh.
It's a lacquer box. And what the courtesan, they're Korean courtesans, and blacking teeth was thought to be attractive. It was good if you had a big black mouth. And what this courtesan is doing is she's got the teeth blacking ink, and she's spitting character. She's spitting a little sort of love, a little tiny sort of love couplet character onto a sheet. I'm like, oh my gosh. I could have a print catalog and I could write that and a few people would get through it, but how much more fun is it to have someone come up here and say, would you look at what she's doing? She's spitting, and talk about the characters. And if I were actually a Korean scholar, I could tell you what the characters say, but I forgot to write down that part of the label. And You know, and that's where the magic happens. I was having a conversation with Robin Dowden this morning and talking about the fact that many of us who work, particularly in education and curatorial and different functions of the museum, got into it because we had a passion, we had a love for these objects. And don't let yourself get so weighed down that you forget about it. And remember to try and meet them halfway, because curators are scared. You know, what this technology means is all of the things that they were trained, you know, to think that they represented and valued are all of a sudden coming into question. And, you know, when they walk into a meeting with the chief curator and the administrator, and somebody pounds his fist on and says, we gotta have an app, and they don't really know what an app is, you know, you need to be there for them, to ask them what their favorite work of art is and say, you wanna see a really cool app that does something like this? And, you know, treat them gently. They'll become little monkeys. They will be like gorillas. And don't you ever tell any of them I said that. So my message to you today is embrace the fractious. And that's all I have.